Morning, you guys. Well, when weather is the top story, the very first thing you talk about in the show, you know that it's making headlines. The heat in BC continues today. In Alberta, finally some relief from that 30-degree weather. Temperatures falling as we head into the afternoon, but Saskatchewan, the heat is back on. And then Eastern Canada, again, under the influence of this upper trough. Now, we've talked about how an upper trough or upper low pressure can lead to more unsettled weather. And why is that? Well, when we have low pressure high up in the atmosphere, it prompts rising air. And when you get rising air, particularly in the summertime, it can often lead to the development of unsettled weather, active weather into the afternoon, namely thunderstorms. Now, already this morning, we've seen showers pushing across portions of southern Ontario through the east and now in through southern Quebec. So if you got the rain this morning, just bring along your umbrella. You'll likely want it later on into the afternoon. Atlantic Canada, where we've seen more sunshine or clear sky already this morning, we actually have dense fog advisories for portions of Newfoundland. And not only this morning will be quite foggy with visibility near zero, expect that fog to redevelop later on today. Now, part of what will help the fog dissipate later on this afternoon will be the elevated winds. But again, overnight, that air temperature just drops close enough to the dew point that you'll see the redevelopment of fog. Now, through the areas that have seen rain already this morning, a fair amount fell in the Ottawa area. You do have a risk of thunderstorms later on today, and it will be quite cloudy otherwise, but quite humid as well. We've got this pocket of moisture thanks to some thunderstorms south of the border that's really going to just push the moisture into southern Ontario. So it's going to be a hot and muggy day. Some areas temperature in the mid-20s, but a humidex into the low 30s. So that unsettled weather will continue into this afternoon. Not everywhere. Pockets of northwest Ontario into Manitoba soaking up the sunshine later on today. So that's communities west of Thunder Bay up towards Dryden, Kenora, Red Lake included in Ontario. But east of that, we see thunderstorms developing as early as about 3 o'clock local time in the afternoon. That'll continue until late evening. Tomorrow morning, more of Ontario sees sunshine, but you see cloud cover taking over most of Quebec through southern Ontario with variable cloudiness into Atlantic Canada. Then for Tuesday afternoon, again, through much of Quebec, southern Ontario, and into portions of the western Maritimes, we start to see thunderstorms developing once again. Wednesday, as we head into the early morning hours, much more clear, but Atlantic Canada, you get the brunt of the wetter weather. So that active weather trend continues. Coming up a little bit later on in the program, we'll talk about how hot it is in Western Canada and when finally all 3 and 4 of the provinces that have dealt with 30-degree weather will finally see a break from it. Now, here's your local forecast cleanup. Hey, this morning, here's a look at your current temperatures across Canada. Very mild in some communities. Calgary, for example, 17 degrees right now, and you're thinking, no, another day of heat in Alberta? Today is your day where the heat finally breaks. For Alberta, temperatures will be in the low 20s today. So that is a huge improvement from the 30-degree heat that has been across the province. We still see that 30-degree forecast in BC, in Saskatchewan, and even into portions of Manitoba, almost getting up to 30 degrees today. It's quite unusual for the region. Calgary sits on average closer to about 24 this time of year. For Eastern Canada, I mentioned the rain, and we've got that this morning through Eastern Ontario, through southern Quebec. We have rain currently, and we've got some thunderstorms right north of Windsor this morning, Windsor, Ontario. Atlantic Canada, it's quieter start to the day, but there are dense fog advisories in Newfoundland for all areas in the Grey, stretching eastward to the southern Avalon Peninsula. Fog is very dense this morning, and it likely will redevelop again overnight tonight with fairly considerable winds expected into this afternoon. But in terms of the forecast, I mean, we're in the mid-20s right across the region. Fredericton, a chance of showers today, 27, but otherwise fabulous weather ahead, 26 today in Halifax. Now, southern Quebec dealing with the rain already this morning, and we do have a risk of thunderstorm for some communities into the afternoon, particularly the eastern townships up towards Quebec City as well. Montreal, bring along an umbrella today. Won't be all too windy, but definitely wet on and off as you go throughout your Monday. And then we've got a risk of thunderstorm as we hit southern Ontario. Temperatures are at We're slightly below seasonal today. The average around this time of year across the region is about 26 or 27. Further north, where it's drier, it's also a touch cooler, 26 today in Thunder Bay. So there's that unsettled forecast. It's not going to rain consistently by any means over the next couple of days, but just know that particularly into the afternoons today and Tuesday, it's likely we'll see the development of thunderstorms and possibly into Wednesday afternoon as well. Western Canada, there is the cooler weather today, but also the risk of thunderstorm developing right across the prairies, central prairies, not only today, but into Wednesday. That precipitation lingers. Now, Canada...
on the weather front.
Thank goodness I have weather skills because I am not tall enough to play basketball. This morning, we are talking a little warmth and sunshine in Atlantic Canada. Today, you can enjoy temperatures somewhere in the 20s. Definitely warmer for Halifax, for Fredericton, Charlottetown, getting up to 26. There is some fog from about Burgeo all the way eastward towards the Avalon Peninsula south this morning, and then again tomorrow morning will likely be quite foggy. Thunderstorms, really the biggest risk factor from Quebec City down towards Sherbrooke for today, not just this morning, but also into the afternoon. Montreal, you need an umbrella. 26 degrees today with rain. Ottawa, you've already woken up to some rain this morning, and that is likely to continue on and off into the afternoon. Risk of thunderstorm really will persist across southern Ontario for much of your Monday. In fact, already around Windsor, we've had some thunderstorms this morning. Further north, the sunshine returns. So northern Ontario, particularly into the northwest, that's where it will stay sunny through the day. Timmins, for example, you could see some showers developing into your afternoon with temperature holding steady in the low 20s. But for Dryden, Thunder Bay, it's likely to stay dry. And we see that warmth and sunshine continue for Winnipeg today with 28. In through Saskatchewan, we've got active weather that's coming from Alberta, and that means a wetter forecast ahead with a risk of thunderstorm for both Saskatoon and Regina. But look at those temperatures, mid-30s today. Big cool down in Alberta, but again, it's wet. We've had thunderstorms from last night persisting into this morning. Kelowna today, 30 degrees, 21 in Vancouver, and lots of sunshine through BC. Now, a couple of warnings still persisting in the west. We have heat warnings for the far southeast of Alberta, including Medicine Hat. The lone spot, really the lone corner of the province where temperature continues to be in the 30-degree range today. The relief for you comes tomorrow. The rest of the province already enjoying that cooler forecast. But heat continues into the far southern reaches of Saskatchewan, and you saw with those highs in both Regina and Saskatoon that it is going to be another scorcher. Make sure you take breaks from the heat if you can. Now into BC, there's a widespread special weather statement because of the smoke from the wildfires. The air quality is significantly reduced for all areas of the Blue, including the Okanagan Valley. That will persist as long as this wildfire situation continues, and with temperatures in the 30s for the rest of the week, it's likely a story we're talking about as the week continues. With more on that, now let's send it back over to Ben.
And now I'm watching the video going, guys, I'm getting really dizzy just looking at it.
It's 50 years old.
It's so fun, though.
Do you dig that?
Not every day by any means, but I mean, the zipper is a classic.
Certainly not while pregnant.
It belongs in a museum.
No, it's fun.
No, it's 50 years old.
They were literally still building it, so that builds the ride doesn't exist anymore. The parts are harder to find. That's
fair.
why they're shutting it down.
Yeah.
It's a safety issue.
It's a safety issue.
Listen, it wouldn't be Calgary Stampede if you couldn't get an exceptionally large corn dog. You couldn't get some mini donuts.
Check
and you didn't kind of feel like you were going to throw up on a ride.
Right, good point.
I'm all for those first two. And if find a third one that fits in with the eating, I'm down with that. That ride is 50 years old.
I mean, it's not like it was just built then and they haven't touched it in 50 years, Ben. Safety standards, it's been upkeep. It's fine. It's safe, everybody.
I have ridden it in the last few forecasts, too, for Victoria, with the sunshine that has been dominant for the last month almost, it seems. That heat, though, that we're seeing through the BC interior is contributing to the wildfire risk, and we'll talk about what that's doing to the air quality coming up in just a minute here. If you're about to head out the door this morning, depending on where you are, it is a very lovely start to the day. 20 degrees right now in the city of Toronto, 17 in our nation's capital, though we do have some rain as we're heading through portions of southern Ontario and southern Quebec. For Atlantic Canada, it is a drier start to the day, and more sun will persist into the afternoon. Fredericton, you do have a risk of showers. That rainy weather that's in southern Quebec is headed your way. But otherwise, for the Atlantic provinces, enjoy the afternoon. Just note that in southern Newfoundland, right along the south coast, there is a fog advisory, and that will persist really as we head into tomorrow morning as well. Dense fog. Now, through southern Quebec, southern Ontario, the risk of thunderstorm is there. It's quite hot and muggy as well, with humidity pushing into the region. Further north, cooler temperatures and lots of sun. But we hit Manitoba, and then you feel that heat, that western heat we've talked so much about through this summer season. 28 today in Winnipeg, even hotter as we head into Saskatchewan. Brandon today, 29, 34 in Regina with the risk of thunderstorm, and then much cooler into Alberta. Safe for Medicine Hat in the southeast of Alberta. Most of the province today in the high teens, low 20s. Medicine Hat still getting up to 30. Then we see a return to the 30s through the BC interior, and that's that heat I was talking about with sunshine persistent over the BC coast. There's a real thunderstorm risk today in the prairies, particularly from Saskatoon down towards Regina, right along that Highway 11 corridor, a wee bit west, but mostly east towards the Manitoba border. Significant hail, straight line winds up to about 100 kilometers an hour, possible risk of tornado as well and heavy downpours. That will prompt later on today. There is a moderate risk outside of that in the yellow south of Calgary, right along southern Alberta, and then a minor risk for all areas in the gray. So please keep that in mind. There's also the heat warnings right along the Alberta-Saskatchewan boundary because of that persistent 30-degree forecast. And then into British Columbia, all areas under the blue under a poor air quality advisory because of the smoke from the wildfires. The air quality is significantly reduced. If you do suffer from asthma or any other respiratory illnesses, you'll want to stay inside and definitely reduce any physical activity outdoors. That's a look across the country today. Now let's send it over to Ben. Active weather, not just in the prairies, but also in eastern Canada, thanks to the influence of an upper trough prompting more instability across the region. Northwest Ontario, enjoy the sun. Through eastern Ontario and the south, we'll likely see a fairly muggy day with humidity flying into the region, but also the risk of thunderstorms later on. Southern Quebec, you're still seeing some continued rainfall from the overnight hours. Ottawa waking up to pretty soggy ground. More showers are headed your way. This will slide into western New Brunswick. The rest of Atlantic Canada will stay dry for today, but fog is a concern for the south coast of Newfoundland all the way through the Avalon Peninsula south. Dense fog is reducing that visibility to near zero this morning and again tomorrow morning as well. In terms of your daytime highs, look at this. Anywhere in the 20s for today. Lab City, our exception, at 18 degrees. Thunderstorms for Quebec City, Sherbrooke, and Montreal with temperatures in the low to mid-20s. It will feel warmer because of that humidity that just really inhibits any evaporation, so you feel that stickiness on you. Southern Ontario, risk of thunderstorm. Drier and sunnier further north, but cool with temperatures in the low 20s. You know what? Manitoba, Saskatchewan makes up for it. We've got temperature in the high 20s, low 30s, mid-30s for the Queen City, Regina today, but a real risk of thunderstorm between Saskatoon and Regina heading eastward towards the Manitoba boundary. We're talking significant hail, very strong winds, heavy downpours, and possible tornado activity in between Saskatoon and Regina, right along that Highway 11 corridor and eastward. Watch out for warnings that will likely be issued later on today. Alberta, a minor risk of thunderstorm, safe for the south. That's where we could see a moderate risk later on today. Plus, we've got those heat warnings continued in southern Alberta and southern Saskatchewan. And then the BC wildfires prompting poor air quality because of the amount of smoke. It's still hot and scorching in the area with a risk of thunderstorm for Nelson and Cranbrook later on today. Canada, that's a look across the country. Now here's your local forecast.